Hello, everybody. Okay, so it's time for chapter 1. Let's get into this a little bit. I promise this won't be too long, and it should help nail home some of the concepts we'll be learning about in this first section. So, of course, welcome to GIST. I am your instructor, as you hopefully already know, and those are our class dates. So, let's just get to the point. What exactly is geographic information science and technology? Any ideas? You guys probably already have had some insight into what it is. Perhaps you've even already read the chapter. Well, first off, it starts with the globe, as in, where are we on the globe? And it's technology that's involved in helping to identify that. And some of the technology that's involved in that is satellites, drones. Drone technology has actually proven very helpful and has revolutionized it quite a bit in terms of aerial photography and also mounting at various kinds of cameras. This is a Trimble unit. It's used for land surveying, and it's actually connected to this, which is a GPS receiver, and that helps to pinpoint very specific coordinates and locations on the Earth for surveying purposes. That's another form of GPS receiver. There's many different kinds of those around. That actual particular one is also made by Trimble. That's something you hold in your hand and you actually walk around and collect data and gather points. Then, of course, we have our own personal computers. Those are actually part of the panoply of GIS technology, because what happens on your computer is your IP address is recorded. So every time you do something that uses your location, your exact location actually is recorded along with your activity because of your IP address. And lastly, of course, we have our smartphones, which is probably the bulk of where we're getting our big data, our big geospatial databases that we are now dealing with these days in the kind of contemporary societies, trying to figure out what to do with. So in terms of applications, there are three major fields and techniques, but there's also a lot of overlaps. So we have GIS, GPS, and remote sensing. GIS, also known as Geographic Information Systems, is computer-based mapping, analysis, and retrieval of location-based data. And that's something we'll be exploring more later in the class. There's GPS, which I'm sure you've also heard of, Global Positioning Systems, which is the acquisition of real-time location information from a series of satellites in Earth's orbit. And of course there's remote sensing, which is more about capturing imagery of various kinds from either satellites or airplanes or other kinds of flying devices that can be anywhere from just a few feet above the ground to several hundred miles. So perhaps the next best thing in understanding and approaching GIST is understanding who uses it and why. And you may think, yeah, sure, I'm sure everybody uses it, but not quite have any idea how. Well, and to be honest, as we go through this list, you'll see that there's probably many, many ways all these industries can use GIS. But let's run through a few sectors that rely on using GIS technology and GIS analysis. Of course, we have government. Government absolutely uses tons of GIS to do elections and redistricting, for intelligence and defense, to create surveys, to do the census, to do planning, to do economic planning, all sorts of things. Next is public safety. First thing that comes to mind is emergency call taking and 911 dispatching relies heavily on using GIS and GIS technology. Utilities are another aspect that rely on GIS and GIS technology in a way you might not realize, because of, if you think about it, utilities and communications are actually all big networks. They're all physical networks that run across the country or a region, and those networks are actually mapped out using GIS technology. And of course we have our natural resources, so our climate, our weather, our atmosphere. Remote sensing helps to monitor all of that. Anything from mining, environmental management, this can all be monitored. A lot of it's through remote sensing, but some of it's also through actual point locations on the ground. And business is something you might not think of, but GIS is used quite a bit in determining things such as ideal locations for setting up new businesses, for understanding the demographics of a consumer base, or even for plotting out routes for, such as like your Uber Uber drivers or your pizza drivers, pizza delivery guys. And of course, transportation, very similar to the networks I described under utilities and communication, also relies on using some form of GIS and GIS technology. Other areas include health and human services. Let's think about disease tracking. That's also can be pinned down to mapping and GIS devices. Sustainable development, mapping, statistics, and imagery, of course. Education are some of the ones out there. So I'd like to ask you to think about yourself. How have you used a form of GIS technology for work or personal use? I'm sure you probably all have to some degree. And this is something that we will be focusing on throughout this course, is to kind of apply it to your life and to your circumstance and see how you use it and how it might be used better, or it could be used in a new way. So the heart of the matter really is this, right? It's all about the globe. It's all about where we are on this planet. This is at the core of geographic information science and technology. There's actually a specific name for it. I might have mentioned it a couple of times already. It's about geospatial data. This is because we are concerned with where a thing, person or people, or phenomenon occurs on the Earth. And in this case, all of this, because of GIS technology, has a geospatial data component, which means it can have a single point, such as a single coordinate, or it can have boundaries, such as a building, or a state, or a country, or a county. It can be a single line, like a road, and a river. Even though a river is three-dimensional, such as a road, it would be represented as a line. And these things can even change over time. And that's also important because geospatial data, even though it's tied to a specific place, can move, and we can track that movement. And these features are always connected to a known location on the Earth's surface. And this geospatial data, or geospatial element, or locational data, it can also be called, is very important. And finally, one thing, well, I'll mention now, but we'll go into it more detail later on the course, is that this data is made even more interesting by all of the non-geospatial data we can attach to it. So if you think about the coordinates of something being in an Excel spreadsheet, and it's on the left-hand side, and we know what it is, we say we have coordinates, and we know it's a house, we can also enter in that same line other information about that house, such as what color it is, who lives there, how many bedrooms does it have. All that information is called non-geospatial data. What that allows us to do when we're creating maps or doing analysis is to have a much richer picture of what's happening in that single coordinate and not that single point. So I would like for you to explore the Esri website a little bit. Esri is the Environmental Systems Research Institute based out of Redlands, California, and they are the company that creates ArcMap, which we'll be using in a few weeks to study some mapping. They have a really good website where you can explore a lot of the industries that they kind of cater to and the different kind of products that they use. So I'd like for you to go on the website. You can see here what I recommend you do, and just take a look around, get used to the kind of language that they're using, look at what they're trying to accomplish, just to sort of familiarize yourself with the different things that are happening with regards to GIS technology. And as you're going through, think about what kind of technology was needed to gather that data. Do you think they had to get that data from a satellite or from an image, from satellite imagery versus photography or remote sensing? Or did somebody go on the ground and walk around and capture data points? So ultimately, it's all about geography. As a geographer, of course, I like to think that it is the purpose. It's called geographic information science. But geography is understanding why things are where they are. It's understanding relationships. And ultimately, that's what our technology is allowing us to explore in even greater depth as we amass more and more data. So we want to know why people, places, and phenomenon are happening where they are. And it can be all three, it can be two, it can be one thing. We just want to understand why things are happening in the way they are. And GIST, which includes GIS, GPS, and remote sensing, is the use of geospatial technology and a geographic approach to help ask questions, solve problems, and improve the outcomes of the things and the places. So last, I'd like to share with you this video that was generated based upon the rise and fall of Twitter tweets that occurred during the Charlie Hebdo attacks back in January of 2015. You can see the top of the screen here. And it's just a great little visual example of how we can use tweets, which are geotagged, so they have a geographic coordinate that's applied, that comes along with the tag, and we can see the occurrences of them throughout a 24-hour period after the attacks initially occurred in Paris. So you can see it's peaking. We're at 6 hours, 7 hours after, 9 hours. So now it's really going. So what I think is fascinating about this is you also not only understand where the news is being consumed, but kind of which cultures are consuming it. You see sort of a interesting darkness over, say, China or Russia. So not as many people accessing or reading that kind of news or consuming it. I mean, we can make many conjectures, but that's why geospatial data is so interesting. We can start to understand what's going on or what's not going on. So I'm going to call this quits for now. Please go ahead. I hope you enjoyed the information in the chapter for this week and gives you a taste of what is to come. So good luck with your assignment, and I will be seeing you virtually on the course middle page soon. Have a great day.